Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is good by sea.
Bullying at all levels of society, mental health issues, alcohol and drug abuse, over $4 billion spent annually on prisons. Ray, is Australia doing enough about its social issues?
We can do more, John.
Like what?
These issues are complex, John. Too often we use cure over prevention.
For example?
Many teenagers, boys and girls, are locked up simply because we can't manage their behaviour or find them appropriate accommodation.
And of course, Ray, most prisoners have low education and mental health issues.
Yes, and we find these issues too confronting and too uncomfortable.
Ray, do we live in a blame society?
Yes, we do, John.
I first started taking drugs mainly because I was in whatever I was into, I used to do full on. And I was full on into surfing in those days. Naturally, someone said, "Do you want some pot?" Then that's a boundary. Once I'd stepped over that boundary, pills came along, LSD came along. So it was just one experiment after another. There's not just one model. There's not total abstinence. That's where TaskForce is brilliant. They're not locked into one particular style of therapy. They work with the client on what suits them.
I used to be depressed most of the time. I had a internet addiction from that. I've basically was a wreck before, but now I'm alright and better now. TaskForce does understand, or does try to understand your problems, and does put you in a place where your problems can be fixed.
I started doing the art program with Juliet, and that's been wonderful. She's a very good teacher. I was married, I started getting sick, and then I wound up in a psychiatric ward of a hospital. And then a year later I wound up in there again, and they diagnosed me with schizophrenia. Once I was diagnosed, I started drinking heavily. I call it the grieving process. I smoked heavily, I drank heavily. I was so engulfed in it, it was my whole world. Then I started with the counselling at TaskForce, and one of the counsellors said, "Well, what do you want to do, Lou?" And I said, "It's not about what I want to do. I'd love to be able to socially drink occasionally, but I'm an all or nothing person." I said, "I'm going to have to give up alcohol for good, that's it." So at the end of this month it'll be 6 years since I've had a drink, and I just feel great.
We do know that treatment works. And so I think optimism among the clinicians is really important, because some of the stories we hear are pretty sad and they might seem a bit overwhelming. But the evidence is very clear that treatment works.
Walk into TaskForce and you meet people who spend their working lives caring for people born into poverty and abuse, who are trapped by addiction or overwhelmed by personal circumstance. Most of us have turned our collective back on these marginalised people.
Youth Connections is a federally funded program, and we work with 13 to 19-year-olds who are at risk of disengaging from school right through to the severely disengaged.
You deal particularly with prisoner referrals. How does that work?
We try and reduce the harm, link them into counselling. Often they have nowhere to live, they don't have much money, particularly people that are released from prison.
So Danny, tell us about this Money for Jam innovation.
It's an innovative program that helps women who are on correction orders with community work attached increase their self-esteem and confidence in order to go on and improve the quality of their lives. And just learning how to cook nutritious, affordable meals that they can then take home to their families.
Most of the women engage, I find. They're actually relieved to have somebody, I guess, that's on their side that will advocate for them, that will make things a little bit easier.
So you set up a support structure
That's right,
for them.
a support structure around them.
We often get that feedback that people feel that they can say anything to us, and we're not going to judge them. We accept them for who they are.
One thing I like about TaskForce is they're not judgmental on which way you want to go.
You know, I feel like I've got more control in my life. I'm filled with more self-love and self-respect.
I like the feel of it. It feels, it's got an unthreatening, it hasn't got a threatening feel.
To be free of addiction, it's a relief.
The mission of TaskForce is to create positive outcomes for people disengaged or living on the margins of the community. It is TaskForce's goal to help provide them with life-changing opportunities to meet their full potential, no matter how hard the circumstances. We never give up on people. If they have hope, we have help.
In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair.